Just a few days ago, my wife Pequin and I celebrated our 53rd anniversary. Well, in fact, we have two anniversaries to celebrate because we were married during the lunar month on Loy Krathong Day. Loy Krathong is the famous Chiang Mai Festival of Lights, and that won't be for another couple of days. So we get to celebrate two anniversaries. But this is a story of not how we found each other. We were both teachers at Yuparat Provincial School in Chiang Mai, one of the largest schools in Chiang Mai. And we got married, and back then it was a little easier to get married and get your wife to America than it is today. Today it's a pretty big deal. But back then it was a lot easier. But we're going to talk about how a man on R&R found his life partner back in Chiang Mai more than 50 years ago. Our story begins back in the mid-1970s when I was in my office at AUA Chiang Mai. AUA stands for the American University Alumni Association. After 4 years of being a contract teacher at Chiang Mai University, I took the job as director of the AUA Chiang Mai School. It's a pretty large school. We had a lot of students all wanting to study English. Today, there are lots of English language schools and teachers around. Back then, we were basically it. So we were quite successful. And I was sitting in my office, and the secretary came in and said, someone is here, an American, he wants to talk to you. I said, well, I was happy to talk to anybody. So I said, yeah, send him right in. So he came in. He was maybe a man in his 30s. And I said, hi, how can I help you? And he says, well, I'm here on R&R from Saudi Arabia. Now, R&R used to be called rest and recuperation. This is when it was used by the military in Vietnam. And after a few months there, they would give them a break for a few days. A lot of them went home, some went to Hawaii, but a lot of them came here to Thailand. But this is in the 70s, and the war had finished, and he used the word R&R, meaning more like rest and recreation, from Saudi Arabia. He was working in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, and every once in a while they'd get a few days off, and they would get out of there because Saudi was a magic kingdom. Later, I went to Saudi Arabia myself, but he had come to Thailand to get some rest and recreation. And he had never been to Thailand before, didn't speak a word of Thai, of course. And just, he saw that I was an American, and he'd walked past the school and stopped in and just wanted to ask me a few questions. He said, where should I go? What should I do? What's there to do? And I'm happy to talk to anybody. So I gave him a whole lot of pointers of where to go and what to do and how to enjoy himself while he was in Thailand. His name was Ron, and he was a nice person, very gentle kind of guy, and looked like he was going to have some fun here in Thailand. About 10 days later, Ron shows up at my office again and says to me, I have a big question to ask you, and maybe you can give me some advice. Now, I was... in one of my lives, I was I worked for the New York State Department of Mental Hygiene as a psychiatric social worker. So I was pretty used to giving advice. I did a lot of therapy, a lot of individual, group therapy, and I also did some couples therapy, which helped a lot with Ron's problem. So Ron told me, I got this situation I really need your help with. I don't know what to do. I met this girl. Well, in fact, I sort of hired her to be my companion for a week as I traveled. And I said, well, yeah, that happens. That's something that's not unheard of here. And he says, well, but the problem is that I've fallen in love with her, and I think we should get married. And then I started thinking, well, that sort of happens here too a lot. I think maybe he was good to come to ask my advice. So I said, well, what do you plan on doing? He said, well, I'd like to marry her and bring her back to Saudi Arabia and live there and, eventually start a family. He said, do you speak any Thai at all? He said, no, not a word. I said, well, how about the girl? Does she speak any English? And he said, no, she doesn't speak any English at all. But I've fallen in love, and I know it's for real. I said, okay. He said, well, she's waiting, Noi. She's waiting outside on the bench, and I said, well, maybe I could talk to her for a few minutes and maybe, in Thai and find out, how she's thinking about this. He says, that would be a good idea. So he brought Noi into my office. He took off outside sitting on the bench, so he just wanted me to talk to Noi alone. And I said, hi, Noi. Tell me a little bit about yourself. She said, well, as you probably know, I'm a working girl. And a week ago, Ron took me out, and he wanted to spend a week with me to go traveling together. And we did. We went to Chiang Mai, and we went up to the border and the Golden Triangle and all the rest of the things you're supposed to do as a tourist. And I said, well, wait a minute. Do you know what he's thinking? And she says, yeah, he thinks he wants to marry me. And I said, well, what do you think of this idea? She says, I think he's crazy. We've known each other for just 1 week, and we don't speak each other's languages, and I don't know where he's coming from. So I said, well, what do you plan on doing? How are you going to solve this problem? She says, look, I got nothing. I'm supporting my family back home in the countryside, and he's got money. He's working in Saudi Arabia, so I know he's making a lot of money there. And I'll marry him. What do I got to lose? And I said, well, you're being very logical about this. Let's bring Ron in, and I'll tell him what you just said. And I did. I shared her thoughts. And he says, well, that's okay. I still, I still want to marry her. And so I said, hey, how about doing this? My therapist was coming through. I said, how about this? How about you go back to Saudi Arabia, communicate her through letters. Somebody near her will be able to translate the letters, and find out how you feel after you've been away for a little while, and you're not under any illusions here. So he said, that sounds like a good idea. So I explained it all to Noi, and she said, I think that's a very good idea too. And Ron, I saw Ron, I said goodbye, and he said, I'll be going back to Saudi Arabia tomorrow, and I'll do what you said. That's not the end of the story. Our story continues about 3 years later. I had taken a position at King Abdulaziz International Airport in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, as an English teacher. I had finished 2 years as the director of AUA Chiang Mai. So it was about 3 years later, and there were two schools that were related. There was the one at King Abdulaziz International Airport in Jeddah, which is the airport that connects up with Mecca for the Hajj, or the pilgrimage to Mecca. So every year during the Hajj time, we would get millions, literally millions of people flying into our airport. So it was a huge, huge airport. In fact, at the time, it may have been physically one of the largest airports in the world. And they had a language school. There were about 50 of us teachers there, teaching employees of the airport. And there was a sister school in Riyadh. Riyadh was the capital of Saudi Arabia. And one day, we were going to get visits from some of the teachers at the Riyadh language school. They were going to come and just observe, as teachers do, observe other teachers, seeing what they're up to. So about 4 or 5 of the teachers came in, and lo and behold, I recognized one of them. It was Ron. And I went over and said hi to him, and he recognized me right away, too. So that was kind of cool. This was 3 years after we had last met in Chiang Mai. So, of course, I had to ask him, so how did all that situation with Noi turn out? And he says, well, I'm glad you gave me the advice you did. I didn't really accept all of it. I accepted part of it. I went back to Saudi Arabia, and I missed her so much. I thought of her about every minute of the day. So the next break I had, I flew to Thailand, found Noi, and we got married. I went, really? Wow. So where is she now? She said, oh, she's in Riyadh with me. We have a little daughter, and we've been married for a couple of years now. And I can tell you I was really, really happy. I didn't think anything like that could have happened, a man on R&R. And one of the things Ron told me, he says, I want to thank you for your advice. You weren't judgmental at all about Noi, and you understood my feelings, and you understood her feelings. And right now we're as happy as can be. We're a family, and thanks a lot for your help. I was really kind of happy that happened. Well, if Ron could find his life partner, it gives us all hope that we may be able to do the same thing. Now, I haven't seen Ron and Noi for almost 40 years now. Their daughter is grown. She probably has a family of her own. I'm really hoping that they made it work. It looked like they did, because Ron was still in love, and Noi knew exactly what she needed out of life. And for all of us who look for our life partner, wherever it may be, I'm wishing you luck. Thanks for watching.